This has been a very interesting project. Of course, the origins go back to work that Ning has been doing and conducting some field studies, trying to understand what are the issues encountered by a range of people involved in the use of drones in the humanitarian space, communities, local stakeholders, practitioners, humanitarian organizations. Also looking at what's been the discussion and the forms of debate, but then really trying to take that knowledge and ask the question, well, how can we then help people to be attentive to the ethical concerns, to be paying sort of attention, but also then a process for helping them to think through what are those implications. And that's really what the E-HUD model is trying to do.
So we are lucky enough in this project to have potential stakeholders and users of such a tool. And we have representatives from the WHO and from the NGO community. So Andres, from your perspective, what are some takeaways from this morning?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So for WHO, new technologies have the potential to do a lot of good in public health. There are also risks that are posed by new technologies. And so it's very important to develop tools and ethical guardrails for the use of these technologies. And this is exactly what this project was about, specifically to develop an ethics tool for the use of drones.
And what are your takeaways, Joel, maybe first about this morning's talks?
Well, I came away quite excited because with MEDAIR and with many other frontline humanitarian organizations, we're facing growing crises in complexity and in scale. And so there's a strong temptation to look to technologies to solve or overcome those challenges. And the pressure to deliver aid faster, more cost effectively, more appropriately, leads us to technology. And so a tool like this is extremely helpful to take a moment to assess, what are the implications? And we have tools like that for is the technology appropriate? Is it legally or compliant and things like this? But sadly, I think ethics is oftentimes sort of left to the last type of assessment. And so here, I think by putting it sort of forefront, particularly with drones, it gives humanitarians a richer tool set to assess whether they're using the right technology for the right solution.
And what would be the view from the United States?
The big value of such a tool is it will allow to empower governments into assessing, okay, you are coming to help us respond to humanitarian crisis, but is it going to be ethical? Is the tool that you're bringing in, are they going to be used in a way that is ethically acceptable? And for me, I see this tool being embraced by humanitarian emergency team within the Ministry of Health or the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs as a structural way to assess the input from others in their country, in their context, and make sure that the people, the communities are respected. So having always putting the community at the center and the government and empowering the governments to better respond to emergency in this case using this transformative innovation.
And we also have here two of the people who actually worked on translating this ethic language and reasoning into what we talk about today, a tool. So maybe you can tell us about some of the challenges on the way?
Yeah, sure. Usually the most challenging things are about stakeholders and who detains all the knowledge about the project. So you have to get their knowledge and put them, in my case, into code, but also firstly into design and make something that really helps people to understanding the challenges that they have to face. Because like others says, people and communities come first, and then the tools, they have to serve them in the best of the ways. So they have to be understandable and functional to their needs.
And then now for more, let's say, donor-shaped question, both SNIS but also the city of Zurich, or canton of Zurich, who funded also the development of the tool. Can you tell us, maybe you and Matthew, about the steps between precisely having a research project funded and then finding other donors to develop a product based on that research?
So as you mentioned, the second part of the project, which is the tool development part, was actually funded by the canton of Zurich, and then this was I got the grant back in 2022. So meaning that I wrote the application in the end of 2021 when the initial research ended, in June in 21. And then it was just because there was a momentum within the canton of Zurich, the German-speaking part of Switzerland, that's very innovation-oriented. I think Joel knows this quite well. And so there was this momentum, and then the canton kind of designated a pot of money for supporting researchers to do the last mile. It's very interesting. It's also what drones do in the humanitarian space to bridge the last mile. And this call itself was called Rapid Action. So it's really taking your research fundings, whatever that might be, into the last. To bridge the last mile, so that it reaches the intended audiences of the your knowledge transfer audiences, let's say. Now I also want to highlight the first part, which was funded by the SNIS, and I think this touches upon the point of promoting interdisciplinary research, and we. From our previous exchanges, Switzerland has been rather conservative in terms of disciplinary boundaries, and there it's very much disciplinary focused. And so this kind of, in this case, in our initial SNIS-funded research, it was not only interdisciplinary, it was transdisciplinary in the sense that we engaged all the organizations into the research. And, if you were looking for funding from the Swiss National Science Foundation, this would not be very highly regarded, not because of it's not important, the importance, but rather because, they're looking for like a basic research and things like this. So then you run into the risk that it's a piece of academic work, and then how do you really make impacts to society? How do you make some services or products or whatever mechanisms that people can really use? And so I think in that regard, I really appreciate the funding opportunities of both organizations, starting from the SNIS and also these other last mile innovation-oriented funding.
So thank you very much, each of you. I don't know if anyone has a last concluding thought or message that they would like to pass on.
The last word would be around timing. I think the timing is right. Drone is the utilization of drone everywhere in high-income country and low and middle-income countries is increasing. The community is starting to accept them more and more and more. So it's really the utilization is growing, but we want to make sure that it's utilized in a respectful way. So I think the timing is right.
I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of you for your contribution, and including our designer and programmer. And I think it's a collective endeavor, although it was our first attempt. I think we arrived at a point where it's really beyond my expectation. And so thank you so very much for your engagement and your contribution in this project. And also thank to my co-organizer of this event, Andreas from WHO. Thank you so much.